Welcome. In this presentation, we will explore the themes and teachings of the Semen Retention Manuscript, Volume 2. Whereas Book 1 laid out the foundations of semen retention, Book 2 dives deeper into the research, history, and advanced topics of the practice. The book is divided into two parts: chapter readings and the full semen retention iceberg chart, which is a multi-layered deep dive into the lesser-known aspects of the practice. I would consider this book both a practical manual and a historical text that goes deep into the roots of the practice. If you wish to learn about semen retention in greater detail, then I recommend you get the book. Available on paperback and in Kindle format. Chapter 1. Tapping into Genius. Sexual energy and life energy are essentially the same. When the life energy is not allowed to escape through the channels of sex, it builds up energetic pressure within the body. It creates the need to exert that energy in other ways, whether that be through physical work, mental activity, or spiritual pursuit. Whichever area you focus on whilst retaining will benefit from a massive surplus of energy that the sensualist cannot access. The unrequited sexual feeling becomes a hunger for whatever activity you replace it with, and as such, one develops genius-like abilities to excel in their chosen field. A release of semen is a release of pressure, a dissipation of energy. The pressure inside the body will inevitably weaken from such a release, and without that pressure, thoughts are less likely to be forged into action. It is the desire for procreation that gives one the motivation to achieve, and a reason to live. This is a biological imperative coded within all bodies. Although we wish to gratify our sexual desires, the gratification of those desires dampens our hunger for life. One's strength of will literally shrinks, and thus our ability to wield any power in this world also shrinks. Sexual release makes us weaker and less able to accomplish tasks of any sort. Thus, the sealing of this energy is the secret to excelling in our field of work or study. It gives us access to a well of energy we previously did not have access to. I believe this is why many of the great men of note throughout history advocated for chaste and celibate lifestyles. Chapter 2. Nature favors the brave. It has long been thought that a man's bravery resides in his gonads. Thus we say of a brave man, he has big balls. Nature intended for man to be brave. That is man's most natural state. A man with his seminal secretions full and intact will in most cases display signs of manliness and bravery. A sensualist, that is, a man constantly engaging in sexual activity and losing these precious secretions, is often said to become effeminate and weak. You may notice in today's society that it is okay for a man to be weak. It is almost encouraged. It shouldn't be. Bravery breeds nobility. It builds the noble traits of man, his chivalry, his sense of justice, his altruistic nature and willingness to put those that he loves before himself. Weakness, on the other hand, breeds the opposite. Weak men prioritize their own survival over all else. They will do whatever it takes to protect themselves, to please themselves. They are prone to immorality and do not strongly prioritize what's right over what's wrong. Their weakness makes them selfish, and thus they often become almost parasitic entities to others, serving no one but themselves. We know from history that eunuchs, that is, servants who had their testicles removed, were well known for their timidity and perhaps cowardice, along with highly feminized physical traits. Your manhood, your courage, and your strength are in your gonads, and language reveals this. Much of our language is subtly imbued with this wisdom that we often unconsciously use. The phrase, "He is half the man you are," often implies man to be connected with bravery. To say that this man has big balls is to say that he is brave. The implication in this is that the more of a man you are, the more brave and courageous you will be. The traits of courage and manhood were a virtue in ancient Greece, known by the word Andrea. Even the origin of this word for courage comes from the Greek word andreos, which means manly. Conversely, excessive sexual indulgence has been linked to the decline of man and deterioration of society. Throughout history, different tribes and cultures had vastly differing customs and habits regarding sexual behavior. Anthropologist J.D. Unwin, whose work we will explore in later chapters, studied many primitive civilizations and their sexual habits. He found that the civilizations practicing monogamy and sexual restraint had more social energy, were more expansive, dominant, and advanced in thought and culture. Chapter 3: The Art of Discipline. If you are finding it difficult to avoid relapsing on semen retention, then please consider where this weakness lies. Your weakness here is self-discipline. Your will is not yet powerful enough to ignore your carnal instincts. Thus, you have not the ability to control your mind. Your mind is controlling you. You must strengthen your will if you wish to succeed. Your level of self-discipline will determine how far you will go in life. You will never have a greater or lesser dominion than that over yourself. The height of a man's success is gauged by his self-mastery, the depth of his failure by his self-abandonment. And this is the law of eternal justice. He who cannot establish dominion over himself will have no dominion over others. The secret to self-discipline is simple. Your purpose needs to be so strong that it overpowers any desires or disturbances standing in your way. Masturbation is a major disturbance that is draining your resources. It severely impedes your efforts to achieve your life's purpose, and thus has no place in your life. It must be eliminated. Chapter 4: The Creep. He looks like a creep. She looks evil. That guy has a serial killer face. We often receive deep visceral impressions of people based on their physical appearance. We may have been told not to judge a book by its cover, but it seems this instinct we have to not trust certain faces or trust others is deeply wired into human nature. It is my belief that this instinct is also very accurate. Criminals, more than not, often look like criminals. Creeps usually look like creeps. Good people usually look good. Not necessarily most attractive, but good, pure, and honest in face. But how does one's moral outlook take influence over the physical features? Thoughts of perversion, greed, hate, and other negative forces, over time, influence not only our psychological state, but our face, our movements, and our organism as a whole. These visual manifestations play a large role in how people instinctively feel about us. We say not to judge a book by its cover, but overlook the fact that the cover reveals much about the book. The outer manifestations of a man give us a window into his inner landscape. Thus, these external signs are very important for mate choice and will never be ignored or looked past. Thoughts influence habits. Habits influence appearance. An example of this would be someone who thinks physical pleasure as most important, thus choosing to live a hedonistic lifestyle in which they do not take good care of their physical health. They may drink too much, smoke too much, sleep too late, and thus the consequences of such choices begin to show up in the face and within their physical form. What started as a seed of thought, over time manifests its physical equivalent. If a man's appearance looks run down and exhausted, it gives us a window into his state of mind. state of health, and perhaps even his way of life. There are exceptions, of course, but multiple signs of unattractiveness and physical deterioration that exceed the standard of one's age are often suggestive of an unhealthy way of living or an unhealthy organism. In mate selection, this is a red flag. We are often taught not to take responsibility for our looks, resigning ourselves to our genetic inheritance. While our genetics do play a significant role, as time goes on, environmental factors, lifestyle choices, and thought patterns begin to take precedence over the way and speed at which we age. The habit of moral thought, sexual restraint, and semen retention will pay you dividends in life. Chapter 5: Societies that practiced sexual restraint. History has shown that societies with loose morals and widespread immorality will slowly deteriorate and self-destruct. The fall of the Roman Empire is a shining example, but to some extent we can perhaps even see this in modern-day society. Some even say that the sexual liberation of Western societies has contributed to the degradation we see in today's modern cities and people. Sexual promiscuity and perversion is rampant. Divorce is rampant. Masturbation and illicit sex are rampant. The effects of sexual restraint on societies were thoroughly investigated and studied in the 1930s by Oxford anthropologist J.D. Unwin, who conducted deep research on 86 civilizations through 5,000 years of history, and arrived at the conclusion that within societies, an increase in sexual restraint led to higher development and flourishing of the culture. He noted that societies with the strictest form of sexual restraint displayed the greatest expansive social energy, whereas societies that had no limitations on sexual activity lacked social energy, did not erect huts or buildings, did not wage wars or seek colonial expansion, and in most cases such societies collapsed within 3 generations. In the almost 700 pages of his published research, Unwin included some very pertinent findings and conclusions regarding the relationship between sexual restraint and productive energy in societies. Among the accomplishments of extremely energetic societies are territorial expansion, conquest, colonization, and the foundation of a widely flung commerce. All these things and their like are manifestations of what I call expansive social energy. A society which displays productive social energy develops the resources of its habitat, and by increasing its knowledge of the material universe, bends nature to its will. All such accomplishments as these imply the previous exertion of thought and reflection, these being necessary precursors to all human achievements. If we want our communities, our societies, and our countries to flourish and develop, then it seems apparent that we must rid ourselves of sexual immorality, impurity, and promiscuous behavior. Chapter 6: Attracting hate. During your practice of semen retention, you will very likely experience a sharp shift in some of your social relations. Keep in mind, we often gravitate towards those we share a commonality with, or someone we look up to in some way. When you go for lengths of time on semen retention, your previous thought patterns of sex and female pursuit begin to change, and in many subtle ways, it changes your own character. A magnet, when strengthened in power, will undergo 2 major shifts. As a positive pole, 1. The surrounding negative poles will generate more attraction. 2. The surrounding positive poles will create more repulsion. In humans, the poles of sexual magnetism represent the masculine and the feminine, that is, the man and the woman. Semen retention will strengthen one's masculine attributes, and thus create a stronger force of attraction from feminine poles. simultaneously repelling the other competing positive poles, that is, the masculine entities in his vicinity. Just as two positive poles on a magnet repel and a positive paired with a negative pole attracts. Your increased masculinity and magnetic attraction is in direct competition with the other masculine poles in your shared space. We say competition here because a man's biological imperative is to procreate, and thus the surrounding attractors could potentially hinder this imperative. The increased male competition affects his ability to secure the best possible mate. When one counterpart becomes more valuable, the surrounding counterparts lose value, or at least perceived value. Therefore, your increase in magnetism can be seen as a direct threat to the male competition around you. There is a very real, unspoken pecking order that exists among all social groups. This pecking order is governed by attention. When we see someone we perceive as below us on the social scale suddenly become more attractive or higher in value, we instinctively feel that we must put them in their place. A so-called beta male acting alpha will anger most men who perceive themselves above that person. Most men will have the instinctive urge to shut them down and remind them of their lowly position on the social ladder. People deemed higher up on the ladder have more of a stake in the hierarchy's existence and thus make more efforts to enforce its rule. This is perhaps an inbuilt mechanism that helps regulate the social order of things. Such behaviors occur throughout the animal kingdom. They are most easily seen in the behavior of monkeys when interacting with their own social group. If a man were of higher value from day one, he would often be looked up to as a leader and befriended by platonic same-sex acquaintances, as association with him can only boost their own value and opportunities. Thus, others would make attempts to create an alliance. We are opportunistic creatures, and the motives here are purely self-serving. Chapter 7. Master your craft. If a man is to progress in this world, he must build value. Some lucky men are inherently born with this value in the form of physical attractiveness. Most men, however, have to go out and work for it. The ability to work hard with consistent focus on a single object for many years is what is usually required to build this value. Investing all of your energy into your craft and no energy into masturbation will fast-track your development far beyond the efforts of the average man. Without the distractions of sex, the level of energy you can invest into your work will dramatically increase, and as a result, you will understand the subject matter at a deeper level. You will pick up on the subtleties in your work that others miss. You will begin to see the connections and relationships between objects that your previously distracted brain didn't recognize. Ultimately, you will become unmatched in your field. The choice to abstain will pay you large dividends into the future of your career. It is the key to unlocking your latent powers and talents that have long remained dormant within you. Semen retention today is such a minority activity that the simple act of retaining will give you the biggest edge over the competition in your field. And if your wish is to monetize or make a living from your craft at some point in future, then a competitive edge will be of much interest to you. The average man loses so much of his time and energy through the habit of sexual fantasy and masturbation that oftentimes his career and life goals suffer as a result. For the masturbator, focusing on his goals will be accompanied by the constant nagging of lust, knocking at his door and inviting him out to play. If one cannot ignore this distraction, he will not get far in life. He will not become a master of his craft. You must eliminate this distraction if you wish to succeed. Chapter 8. The practice of edging. Many retainers, especially at the beginning, may go on to continue edging often and think that if they are not ejaculating, then there is no harm done. I would disagree with this point. I think that there is no benefit in edging for a retainer, and if anything, it is detrimental to one's practice. In biology, it is not only ejaculation that leads to degeneration, it is gonadal activity, and the gonads are exactly what are under constant stimulation when edging regularly. Constantly edging will keep your mind full of sexual imagery. It will put you under the spell of lust. The higher human aspirations, such as spirituality, learning, and moral action, will take a back seat to the dominant powers of lustful thought. The gratification of sexual desire usually comes at the cost of mental and spiritual energy. You can receive the short buzz of venereal pleasure, but must pay with your life force. This is a trade-off taking place, a deal with the devil, selling your soul. Don't do it. Chapter 9. Demon Prevention. Sexual indulgence in the ancient texts was often warned about. It was a path that led to evil, destruction, and to the fall of man. The path of abstinence was also seen as the path of man's own salvation, his path back to the Garden of Eden he was long exiled from. Since ancient times, the world has been under a constant battle between the powers of good and evil, entities of a creative and destructive nature. The human body serves as a vessel for these powers, compelled to action by either force. A human can act for the will of creation or the will of destruction. Goodness is creation. Man was born to create. Thus man was born good, untarnished by evil and sinful thought. You are the seed of creation, and you embody this life principle. Your very nature is creative. Evil is degeneration. It leads to destruction and premature death. One who practices evil is by nature degenerate and degenerating themselves. Much of the evil that exists in this world originates from an unrestrained sexual desire. Even ambitions for riches, recognition, and fame generally stem from this same desire. A lustful mind will gradually erode the moral fibers of a person and inspire selfishness and evil deeds to be committed. Often, one under the control of a lustful impulse will be quick to betray his loved ones and friends for sexual opportunity. He will go against his fellow man for personal gain, for sexual satisfaction. Some may even harm others in the pursuit of this pleasure. We see this most commonly in cases of infidelity, which in the modern world is hardly a rare phenomenon. Lust corrupts the soul of a person by destroying their sense of humanity and compassion. It entices one to pursue sexual desire above all else. That is why lust is considered a perversion of nature. The destructive energy of lust has been known since the dawn of humanity, and warnings against its dark power exist in almost all the major religions and scriptures. It is said that the man who indulges in immorality and lustful desire will travel down the path of his own destruction. He will desecrate his inner kingdom. Chapter 10. Facial Attractiveness. How does semen retention improve one's face? Often there are reports by retainers of looking more attractive and youthful when on semen retention. Some will argue that it is a placebo effect that results from enhanced confidence, though there is substantial evidence to support the claim of physical improvements linked to semen retention. First, let us look at some aspects of what is deemed as unattractive. Aging. As we age, signs of deterioration make themselves visible in the face. Facial adiposity, or the perception of weight in the face, is said to be an accurate indicator of one's level of health and attractiveness. Various studies have established a relationship between facial adiposity and perceived attractiveness and health. Fat loss in the face is often associated with aging, whereas abundant levels of adipose tissue, also known as baby fat, tend to signal youth and vitality. Signs of youthfulness indicate health, and signs of health are perceived as attractive. For someone who is not suffering from obesity, the general tendency of the face as it ages is to lose volume and facial fat in the deep fat compartments of the face. These are the areas that exude our youthful appearance. The face also loses muscle and bone density, as does the rest of the body. The cheeks become more hollow, facial contours change shape, darkened circles appear under the eyes, shadows become more pronounced, and an overall loss of volume becomes visually apparent. Even if the face gains weight from an overall body fat increase, the areas in which the adipose tissues signify youthfulness tend to dissipate. In some extreme cases of this fat loss, the face starts to show signs of emaciation. This is particularly the case for men. In the past, it was said that chaste living could prevent this onset of facial aging. The renowned Swiss doctor Tissot connected excess sexual activity and semen loss to emaciation. He furthermore writes how the excess loss of seminal fluid blocks nutrition, weakens the body, and affects development. Chapter 11. Escape the rat race. The most practical benefits one can gain from semen retention is increased productivity. This is simply the result of more energy. More energy to invest into work or field of study. This gives a retainer an edge over the competition, which is exactly what he will need if he is aiming to enter the free market and earn a living independently. To make your own income and not rely on a company salary is something the vast majority of men are unable to achieve in today's world. Once we gain control over our life force, our will becomes stronger and more easily exerts its influence over our lives. The plans we make will more easily come to fruition. The actions we take will create more impact, as it is loaded with more energy. If you want to rise out of your current situation and reroute your life towards a higher purpose, formulate a plan and start with semen retention. Chapter 12. Marriage. Many often question whether semen retention is really compatible with marriage, as if to imply that marriage requires the continual loss of one's semen. Not only is marriage compatible with semen retention, I believe it is most conducive to the practice. A lifestyle that prevents constant stimulation and release of dopamine will be very beneficial to one seeking to retain their sexual energy. If you wish to grow into your ideal form, to live a clean and hygienic life free from the depravity and influence of lust, and in a state of healthy balance, then I strongly recommend marriage. Again, why? Because a man married to a good woman develops the qualities of a good human: love, affection, and compassion. It is easier for a man to cool and control his sexual passions when in a long-term partnership such as marriage. He no longer needs to live in a constant state of sexual stimulation and can thus allocate his energetic resources towards more productive pursuits. Marriage promotes all the qualities of a good and decent human being. We are made to serve, and serving our loved ones brings a sense of fulfillment to life. Living in companionship with loved ones humanizes us, whereas living a solitary existence tends to bring feelings of loneliness, melancholy, and isolation from the world. It may not feel so lonely in the early and middle stages of one's life, but as time goes on and one gets older, feelings of loneliness often increase, particularly in men, as we are generally less sociable than our female counterparts. Chapter 13. Addiction to beauty. A man addicted to lust and a man in control of his desires project a very different aura or energy, and this is easily sensed by others during interactions. It is not difficult to spot the sensualist. It emanates out of him, in some subtle and some not so subtle ways. Self-control is a very important trait for a man to have, yet many men are unable to rein in their lustful feelings. A man with good character puts his values before all else. A man with excessive lust will often undermine his own values in pursuit of its fulfillment. It's not that desire should be ignored, but that a man of character is able to remain true to himself, even when his instincts might encourage him to act otherwise. The lustful man is a slave to the flesh, and thus the mere sight of a woman's beauty renders him weak. A man who cannot control his passions often exposes a weakness in his character and personality. Perceptive or perhaps older humans will more readily perceive this flaw in him. A man who is controlled by lust often reveals it in subtle ways. He will drop inadvertent hints. Often he may interpret parts of speech in a lewd manner or inject his speech with sexual innuendo. This will generally become more pronounced after a few drinks of alcohol. A man who cannot control his sexual desires will be more willing to act out of self-interest in order to fulfill those desires he so strongly craves. Intense lust can easily erode rational thought and moral judgment. It essentially renders one selfish and stupid. How many times have we seen on TV the man who stumbles over his words when the attractive woman speaks to him, or the popular cheerleader in class who is just as daft as she is beautiful? We have now summarized the first 13 chapters from the book. The second half of this book is the Semen Retention Iceberg series, a 6-tier investigation of the practice going into detail of the physical benefits, mental benefits, retainers of history, deeper physiology, occultism, and sacred texts related to the practice. If you wish to thoroughly deepen your knowledge and understanding of semen retention, then I recommend you get this book. The book is available from the link in the description. Thank you for watching.